This is my games mechanic programming tool that I've produced for this semester's games mechanic programming. So I'll quickly show you. This is the tool I made. It allows you to, well, it's a wave spawning system if you haven't worked that one out by the name. So it allows you to select what enemies you wish to spawn. So you do that by using these drop down boxes that then communicate to this script over here to put them in. It also allows you to have multiple waves, which are these. Well, it's a list of um, the waves, and obviously it has the number of enemies to spawn in each. So you can go through them, and it will update what wave you're on, and show you over here how many are spawning. So at the moment we got 7 waves, and it won't let you go above or below, just so you can't obviously edit with anything that's out of the index range. Um, So we're currently on wave 1, and there's one enemy, one of the first enemies spawning, one of the second enemy. Obviously, if I want to change this to, let's say, 3, I'd throw it over here, press save, and it will now come over here and it's updated. So you can obviously do that with all the waves you go to, so 7. So I've added the ability to add new waves in and take them away. So obviously, if you press add, it will add a new one over here, and it starts naturally with 0 in each. So let's head to round 8 and let's put 4 of the first enemy, 2 of the second enemy, and let's hit save, and it'll pop up over here and change it. Um, I've also got these values, times between spawns and times between waves, just because obviously um, you don't obviously want the enemies spawning all at once, or you might want the wave to progress slowly, so you might slow it down. And same with the time between waves. So obviously you don't want the next wave spawning straight away. So let me whip up my notes to make sure I've covered everything. Um, in the enemy selection, um, you can choose anything. It will spawn anything. It doesn't have to be a certain class. You can throw your own AI in, so it's nice and flexible for the user when they come round to doing it. So they can put their own AI in, and basically, like I was going for like a Call of Duty Zombies thing, so they might want the normal zombie to spawn, and then let's say on a round they want a boss to spawn, so that could be the second enemy. Um, so looking back on it, I tried to get it so you could add new classes, so you could have multiple, like more than 2, so you could just add and take them away. But there was like some design constraints with the tools and how to make the blueprint, basically, because there's a bit of blueprint and code behind each one to duplicate it. So in for that reason, like I could only get around to doing 2. Obviously, the code that's there you can just copy and paste, and it will allow you to have a third enemy or a fourth enemy, but I couldn't get it so you could have a button just to add a new type, due to like the tool and the editor and stuff not working well. Well, yeah, not working like very well. It would have included like lots of lists, and it would have been really jumbled up, and I didn't have time to get around to do that. Um, so the other constraint of this is these 2 enemies need to be in the world to be able to have them in the list. You can delete them out the world once you put them in the list, and the script will remember what enemy to spawn, but the current list is all the objects that are currently in the world. So you can remove them, so I can do that, but it will give you a visual bug and say none is spawning, but still in the code over here they are actually saved. Um, the other thing to know about this system is they the killing of the enemies is and the changing of the waves is all hooked into the destroy of the enemy. So if the enemies don't use the destroy function for some reason, such as object pooling, this system won't work. Um, that's just how I set up to hook into the system and count how many enemies have died. Um, the wave adding and scrolling. I think is really well done and effective. Like the buttons help you obviously get visual feedback straight away, and obviously these changing over here also helps the user to know like the current status of the wave. obviously the adding and taking away of the waves, nice and simple. I used like just the up and down button all the way through just to make it easy on the user to use. It might be a little slower than having, let's say, a drop down menu, but I think it's more effective. Maybe, yeah. Inputting the numbers and getting to display, it's pretty easy. Like, obviously, you can scroll them up or down, or you can manually enter them with numbers. That's just how the tool's designed, and like it allows you to input numbers. Having the same button isn't necessary in this, because the save button has all the functionality behind it of changing it in the code. So that's one thing like it's important to communicate, which I put in the user documentation to make sure they know um, that that like to press that after every time you change the value. Um, what else have we got? Adding spawns positions. So originally I was doing it through inputting an X, Y, and Z axis, and I didn't think it worked that effectively because like you couldn't visually see where the object was going to be. So instead now I have these add spawn positions, and it adds one into the world, and you can drag it around, and it will just spawn them equally weighted at the moment. So let's say I've got like 6 spawn positions at the moment. So it's nice and visual for the user, and I would say it's probably easy to debug and edit. And then obviously you can just take them away by doing that, and it just goes down the list from the top. Just like these little bits are a bit of like just help with the like the feeling, because obviously not all waves come straight away, not all enemies spawn straight away. So like just having these makes it a proper rounded tool, and like gives the user more like flexibility, and that was my whole preface with this tool, was to give flexibility to the player. So we might as well press play and see what happens. So I think they're spawning quite slowly at the moment. So obviously you see they all spawn at the different locations, and I've added UI so they can see what wave they're on and how many there are. And I also added this debug button to allow the player or the user to kill all of them, so it progresses to the next wave. So we'll let that happen again. So I added the button into the UI here because tools, they don't work while like the gameplay is going on. So I had to decide to put it here instead, and I think it was quite helpful, quite effective. So once the game is over, or we've done all the waves, which might take a little while because I made the spawn system quite slow, um, it changes values in the spawn controller. It's got a value called level over, and it checks that. And then in the game mode, we also have is finished, so the user can and add on to the game mode. They say they want the level to change, switch, or anything like that. It can do that. We're getting through the levels now, and I've also got a little bit of debugging just for the user to see when they press how many enemies it's killing, stuff like that. Just helps like with the debug process. So I'll actually show you some code now. So we'll start with the spawn controller because that's the main bulk of it. So obviously I've gone through and like commented all the all the functions. So obviously you could go through and read them, but I'll just go through them quickly. This counts the enemy deaths, so when they die, and then obviously runs a check round check to see if if all the enemies are dead. That's also for the second actor. It does that. That's the check round, and it checks if this boolean's changed, and when it has, it runs has round ended, and then that literally just changes the value. Has round ended equals true, which is nice. It then goes through and resets all the stats. Like it refreshes the next wave. This is the code for adding new spawn positions, literally just spawning them in and adding them. This is for the removing. It finds the last one in the list and removes it. So this is the spawn enemy code. It goes through obviously and checks how many are left to spawn, finds the spawn selectors to go through and spawn them at, and then obviously this is the spawn line. It then checks that it has been spawned and adds it to the list that is called destroy list, which is the list of enemies that can get destroyed when you press the button. Um, And then also, this is the hook into the destroy system and will run count enemy death once the enemy has died. And then it obviously takes one off the list, and it just does that for every type of enemy, so that's the second type there. On begin play, this is just setting all the values at the start. And on tick is where I do a lot of checks, so this is to check once the destroy list is bigger than 1 and the person has pressed the button, so can destroy, it will go through and give obviously the on-screen message, and then go through and destroy everything on the list and empty the list out, which is nice. This one is to check if the level is over, so it just makes sure like the level's over, and then it will like give the current wave number like along. And then this one here is if the round has ended, it will set up a new timer. The timer's obviously set to the timer that the player has set. It will go up a wave and it will run that. It won't run that. That's the level check for the game being over. And this is when obviously the round's not over and it wants to go to the next level. So obviously we got the game mode. So this is literally just checking if the game is over and setting that to true. Obviously a new person can come in and add whatever code they want. So yeah, that's that. We've got a few structs that had to be set up. So these are structs for each level. So obviously it's got number to spawn, or this is the struct for the enemies to spawn, and then we've also got another one somewhere where it's currently, I can't read, enemy amount, and this is just saying how many enemies can spawn on each level, which obviously the player inputs. Apart from that, that's a lot of it. I'll get up the blueprint for edit. I'll get up the blueprint. So obviously this is all set up in here, and this is the blueprint. So this one here just wave spawn times. It just gets the wave spawn time number that they input obviously on the tool here and sets the value. This one here just calls the function to add and remove spawn points, so that goes straight to the C++ code. This basically makes it so this next one here, it's, let me not show that. We go to, I've lost it. This just makes it so the number can't go above 1 and 0, and all of this magic. This basically is when the player presses up or down on the wave and allows them to go through and change a value, and then sets the numbers that are here to what they're meant to say. This sets the enemy, basically when the mouse is over this, it just makes sure that it has the reference to the C++ script. This event, the event constructor allows to be placed in. So basically, this box here, it basically sets this, the enemy reference in the script using this drop down. That's what that one does. And this is what the save button does. It just sets the numbers in the code, just sets it in the struct. If the actors are changed, so basically this just updates the reference to the actors once they're changed in the box, and this just removes waves from the list. It literally just takes it away from the index of the wave. So I believe that is everything covered. I'll just do a big chunk of feedback on what I could improve, what I would have done better. So if I was going to do it again, I would have definitely built the system in a different engine first. So I would have gone in Unity and worked out how I was going to do the enemy types and classes so I could have multiple. Because obviously everything at the moment in Unreal is a T array if you want to have like multiples and stuff. So I would have had to come through and worked out the logic. And I think maybe making that in an engine that I'm more familiar with, I could have probably reproduced it quite well. Because it's just more rapid over there, and I could do that. Apart from that, I think it's done really well. Maybe some more user feedback. Added some like values and numbers from the spawn controller onto the tool, but obviously the tool once it's in game doesn't really work during game time. So it really it would have depended on maybe more values could have been presented like in the UI over here. But apart from that, I think it's gone pretty well, and I'm glad that I've had some more time in UE, and it's definitely like taught me a lot, I would say.